Hi, I'm Alex Jacob. I'm Andrea's friend for 40 years, family. I'm here as the MC. We are here to celebrate Andrea's life. A lot of friends here, a lot of family here, a lot of children here. Andrea's children are here. I've got 2 kids, and they consider Andrea like a mother. And there are a lot of other children here, and all their parents are also part of the family. And so Scott would say that, they're all her siblings. And so, so that is a huge family gathering here. That's the way I see it. And this is a corn party. Andrea grew corn in Northeast Edmonton, a lot of it. And every summer, about September, end of September, we had a corn party. And there'll be a lot of boiled corn, and the party starts about 5 o'clock, and people come and go. They're finger food. And well, the party comes to an end about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And we did that every year. And Scott said, it doesn't matter when, we are going to have corn party to celebrate Andrea. And so that is why we are at this time. And there's a lot of corn. We were shucking it yesterday. And it is being cooked in different places and being brought here. And so in terms of the beginning, since there are a lot of people, we gave time allocation, and I said that if you try to pull off your 2 minutes on me, it's not going to work. I've been told that by many of the speakers. And so we are trying to keep it within the time limit so that we can finish at a reasonable time. But everybody is welcome to speak after the speakers list. By way of announcement, there's a door there for exit, and there's a door here for exit, and all the bathrooms are, as you come into the foyer, to the right, there's the ladies' bathroom, to the left, there is the men's bathroom. And with that one, we are going to introduce Notre Dame de Benin with the songs to start the functions.
I'm not as tall as Alex, so I may just have to raise my voice. I'm Beth Nilsson. I'm with Notre Dame de Benin, and Andrea always loved coming to our concerts, and so Scott asked that the choir perform some songs that Andrea would have liked. We're going to do 3 songs for you. The first is called The Warrior. It's written by the Weird Sisters, and I always thought of Andrea as a warrior, so I picked this one especially for her. The next song we will do is Oh Freedom, which was always one of Andrea's favorites. And the last we will do is Bread and Roses, which probably needs no introduction whatsoever.
I was a lost and lonely girl with the heavens in my eyes, and as I walked along the way, I heard the echoes of her cries. I cannot fight, I cannot a warrior be. It's not my nature nor my teaching, it is a womanhood in me. I was a lost and angry youth. There were no tears in my eyes. I saw no justice in this world, only the echoes of her cries. I cannot fight, I cannot a warrior be. It's not my nature nor my teaching, it is the womanhood in me. I am an older woman now, and I will heed my own cries, and I will a fierce warrior be, till not another woman dies. I can and will fight, I can and will a warrior yes, I know. Oh, 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 yes, I know. Freedom, freedom, oh, freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom, freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. 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 Freedom. Hey, hey. Oh, freedom. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom. Hey, hey. Oh, freedom. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is freedom. Freedom is freedom. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is freedom. Freedom is freedom. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. As we go marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens of coals and mill-lofts gray are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we go marching, marching, we battle to for men. For they are women's children, and we stand as one with them. Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As we go marching, marching, we're numbered women dead. Go crying through our singing, their ancient call for bread. Small art and love and beauty, their drudging spirits new. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we go marching, marching, we bring the greater days. The rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler, tend will toil where one reposes, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses, bread and roses. Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies, bread and roses, bread and roses.
Next, we have got Scott, Andrea's daughter. And she was selflessly sharing her mother with two of my sons, a lot of boys, and a lot of girls, all the way from Assumption, all the way out here. And here is Scott.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad to see all of your faces. Thank you for coming, and Andrea's sister and her niece are here. Thank you for coming to represent the family. I love you too. And I'm just, even though I'm like bawling and so missing Andrea, I am so heartened and grateful for the community that she was part of bringing together, and because it makes me strong. And thanks to the choir and Beth and everyone in the choir for singing, because that was a huge part of just both music and voices and the power of that. And Beth, for wherever you are, for selecting those songs. They're beautiful. I don't actually have tons to say. I thought it would come to me, and basically Andrea was a great mother. She was a great mother to like so many, and Alex said it well, and I'm a lucky kid, you know, and I grew up in this like hall and in this community, just running around, so many meetings in here, you know. That was the last time I was here, was at, I think, a Sundance AGM. And I walked in here the other day and I was like, God, they must have renovated it smaller. But it's just been a great coming together, and I'm actually really grateful that we took a year and did it at the corn party. We were just out at the garden yesterday picking all the corn with a couple of close friends, and it just seems right. So I'm really glad you're all here to celebrate in the corn party with us. Yeah, you know, I'm gonna leave it at that, and I just feel incredibly loved by her. And even as a fun note, I'll just add this as a fun note. We picked up her ashes yesterday morning because we realized, we're like, oh yeah, Andrea's ashes are at the funeral home, we gotta go get her. And so we got her, and then we had it all planned, and we're going out to the garden, and we're like, oh, Andrea's come to the garden with us. Great, perfect. You know, so she came out to the garden with us, and she hung out with us all yesterday, and she's here today. And yeah, it's like such a privilege. And when I go to be raised in a badass community by badass individuals, and I still haven't even found those badass people out there. I know they're out there. They're out there, and I have them in my circle. But I don't know that I would have been so inspired to find those badass individuals and community members who strive for that if I wasn't raised in it. Yeah, thanks.
I'd like to introduce Andrea's sister from Connecticut, Susan Rogers, yeah.
Yeah, Connecticut. It was in her blood. It was there before you met her. And that sister is different than any relationship you have with anyone else's sister. When she got admitted to and a scholarship to St. Joseph's College in West Hartford, Connecticut, the big deal of the family was happening. The first child of all the cousins going to college, getting a full scholarship, working for pin money on the side by doing nanny for a doctor in the town there. And then when she was moving on to that stage, and I was 8 years old, and sharing a room with her. I was so thrilled that she was going too, because I was going to get my own room. So there's always another perspective to everything. From Connecticut, and hearing about all of you, she had an amazing, happy life with a beautiful family, and how that made us feel, knowing, I'm sorry, knowing she had all of you. And the part about it that's even more special is that she picked you. She loved you, and she had things in common with you. She couldn't pick me. She was stuck with this. And my older brother Greg and younger brother Michael, miss her dearly, wish they were here too, but could not make it. My daughter Lauren, as Andrea always called her, the young feminist. Come on, take the battle on, because there's a lot more work to do. Isn't that what she would say to you? So I love you because she loved you. Thank you.
We have got a lot of speakers, so we are going to go one by one, unless, still we are going to spend a lot of time here. Here's the honor.
Okay, all right. Okay, so a few days after Andrea died, some of us gathered informally, and a few made toasts, and in my toast I referenced some poetry that was meaningful to me at the time, and of those poems, the one that's kept coming back to me and back to me since then has been Prince's Nothing Compares to You. No one compares to Andrea. And those of us who are left behind have tried to keep each other company, tried to give each other support, but there is no other Andrea. So it's been a tough 10 months. But a couple of weeks ago, I heard a new poem that I found meaningful and helpful now. And so I'm going to frame some of my personal remembrances in it. And it's called A Litany of Remembrance, and it's by two rabbis, Rabbi Sylvan Kamens and Rabbi Jack Reimer. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember her every day. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. I remember Andrea at Easter Sunday breakfast at our house over, I think the past 20 years. She would come on Saturday to help us set up, and she did help us set up, but we really got her to come because her calm, patient presence was so needed by us at that point. A couple of years ago, I had a cutlery crisis on Saturday. The cutlery set that I was depending on had been left at the farm, and I had to bring out my grandma's old silver plate, and it was all tarnished. And Andrea said, "No problem, I'll take it home and polish it." And she did. After our breakfasts, guests always take food home. This is what they're supposed to do, this is what we want, this is great. But Andrea understood that the really right thing to do is to come back to share more food and visit on Sunday evening, and then again on Monday, and then again on Tuesday and Wednesday if she didn't have meetings. Those are really good memories. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember her. All those folk fests, sharing a section of tarp. All those folk fest committee meetings for Peter and Andrea. Peter and Andrea and I stopped going to folk fest at the same time. That's another story. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. Here we are. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. Over the past winter, I remembered all the wonderful, warm dinner parties Andrea had at her house, incredible gatherings of friends, old and new. Andrea had a lot of friends. Whenever we got together, there was always lots of news about the people she knew. I say news very deliberately because in the 45 plus years I knew Andrea, I never heard her say anything that I would categorize as gossip. She was a respecter and acceptor of people. She cared deeply about all the people in her orbit, and she was deeply interested in them, and their partners, and their children, and their extended families. And she assumed that whoever she was talking to would be interested too. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. Peter and I figured that we spent not all, but the majority of New Year's Eves with Andrea in one way or another over the last 35 years. First, there was the traveling supper at Sundance Housing Co-op. The wassail tradition started then. Then there were the years going to first night. In those years, Janine would be with us after Danny died. We came home and made wassail those years too. For the last, we think 15 years or so, a small group of us has gathered at our house, at Peter's and my house. I remember Andrea in the kitchen in those times with Peter and Lynn as midnight countdown approached, making the wassail. She brought the Madeira. Her knowledge of how to bake the apples and beat the eggs was important, but as often with Andrea, her most important contribution was the strong calm she brought to the process. Our little New Year's Eve circle. The core of us have been friends for more than 40 years. Of course, in the last while, we started to fear the first loss, the breaking of the circle. It never, ever seemed remotely conceivable that it would be Andrea. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. At the worst time of my life, I turned to Andrea for help, and she was there for me. For months, I spent what seems in retrospect to have been more time at her place than at mine. She listened to me. She paid attention to me. She did not judge. She got me through. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember her. Andrea was with Peter and me when our children were born, when our farmhouse was raised, so many of the major milestones, the big celebrations, we shared. But what I've remembered over the past months has been the Fridays. Pretty well every Friday night for 11 years, Andrea, me, and Peter, sometimes others, dinner and a movie. I remember how she'd walk into our house on Friday and find Peter and say, "Hello, Peter." And why did she say that? It didn't make sense. But when she did say it, we felt like, woo, it's Friday night. She had that capacity to make our mundane occasions feel like occasions. Brighter, more exhilarating, more interesting. And she was so interesting. She was so smart. You could talk to her about anything. She was so human, you could talk to her about anything. She knew about everything. She was fun. She made us have fun. She made us better people. She made our lives better. We were very, very lucky. So as long as we live, she too shall live. For she is now a part of us. And we remember her.
Hello, my name is Roy Ells. I'm the brother of Sharon Ells, who is a long-time friend of Andrea's. They go way back. The loss of Andrea came as an awful shock, as it did to, I'm sure, all of us. As we've already heard, Andrea came from the United States. Her family, her parents, her siblings, lived down in Connecticut. So this community of people, that many of them are here today and elsewhere, they helped fill that part of her life. And in the process, Andrea became very important to a lot of people. Her home was a meeting place for all of us. She took in people, she brought them together. Andrea was inclusive with everyone, and everyone felt welcome in her home. I know I've met a lot of you just through Andrea, otherwise I wouldn't know you at all. During that time, she raised a family, and she contributed greatly to her community. Part of her legacy is that she brought so many people together. Part of her legacy, in my opinion, is that she was a respected member of the community, the city, and the province, as she worked tirelessly on projects and causes that helped many people. She represented a constituency of people through her leadership and as a spokesperson to many people that didn't feel they had a voice. On a more personal note, she was part of our family. She was a long ways from her own family. Andrea was a good friend. She was honest, she was trustworthy, and she was true. My sister Sharon met her in about 1970. It could have even been a little before that. I know I was quite young when I first met her myself, and Sharon and Andrea were close friends ever since. She was accepted in our family with the feelings you would have for a sibling. She shared a close relationship with our family for about 47 years, maybe even a little more. She became part of our family. She stayed at our homes. Sharon stayed at her home. She was always a presence. Her loss is still very fresh in our minds. Sharon views her passing as if she has lost a sister, and indeed she has. So it is with great regret that we have to say goodbye to such a long and enduring friendship and relationship as we had with Andrea.
Hello, I'm Karen Roseville, and this is Donna Stazensky, and we had the great pleasure of knowing Andrea for a very long time. We met her in about 1972, I would say, and in the women's movement in Edmonton, and we just clicked, and we just stayed good friends forever. We can't really add too much to what everybody else has said, I don't think. But we did a lot of things with Andrea, spent a lot of time with her, and I think mostly what we did was have a good time, because Andrea was a lot of fun. And one of the things we really enjoyed doing is every once in a while we'd just leave all our families and go off for a women's weekend, just the three of us, and often to Vancouver, Victoria. That was right.
And visit Scott.
Oh, sometimes, which sometimes not. But we miss her, of course, and well, what can we say? Donna can. There you go.
Thank you, Karen. Oh, good question. What can we say about Andrea? For me, she's a woman who we both knew for almost half a century. And so many of the words I have written down have already been said, but for me, these are important. Feminist, tough, caring, mediator, consensus builder, family resolver, mentor, loving. Memories. There are so many memories that we all have, but for me, some of them are camping, and I know for Hans too, and many of us in our postmodern family, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute, canoeing, dinners, you know Andrea's dinners, celebrations, traveling to India, and this is as a result of being with Andrea, cooking, and for me, gardening, which became part of our lives. And so Andrea loved to garden, and I was a friend who did garden with her, and I have many, many memories of that also, and sharing the garden. But spring has to be a favorite time. You know, when those catalogs come and you know winter is over. So Andrea would have her VC's catalog, and she'd pop over and say, okay, what are we planting this year? And corn was always at the top of our list. What kind of corn are we going to grow this year? So she'd have her favorites, and we'd plant those. And we grew corn this year, some of which you will be enjoying this evening. It didn't turn out quite the same without Andrea, but she was there in spirit. So please enjoy that corn. And so as we were growing that corn, you'd always have lots and lots left over. So Andrea's big idea, of course, was to have a party. Let's have a corn party. So that became a tradition for I don't know how many years, but you've heard about that too. And so today is an opportunity to celebrate Andrea and share corn. But as we're here to say goodbye to Andrea, I think one of the things I heard from so many people is how Andrea brought people together, and those memories will stay with me as that family that Andrea could build is here today, and my hope, as with Scott and Alex, is that we can somehow continue a corn party in the future, somehow get together and continue our relationships. Just a few more things. Andrea left us with many gifts, Scott being number one, and a large family. But also, if you know Andrea and have been at some of her celebrations, she loved to begin her dinners with a toast, and as Donna said, respect. It was always to congratulate someone or to give a toast to someone she loved or someone's birthday. She was just super at doing those things. And the other very important thing for me that I hope we will some way think about Andrea and others is that you could never come into her house or when she came to your house, hello, hello. You know, she'd have that great big hug to give. And when you left, you'd also have that hug. So our postmodern family, it's a huge family here too, but Scott, Karen and Bruce, Colin and Andrew, Hans and I, and the family grew as new babies were born, as Mara. So I'd just like to acknowledge that, and that's our postmodern family. But Andrew is going to help Karen and I with a little something that Andrea always did, and I'm surprising Karen with this too. Andrea would always celebrate with a toast at the beginning of a celebration. And she would say something fabulous. Karen? Well, Andrea would start. Andrea would say, Karen.
Karen, would you just say, I'm going to say this.
You're the most wonderful friend I have, and it's your birthday a few weeks ago, and you are older than I am, and I love you. But anyway, thank you. I'm sorry we can't share with him. To Andrea.
Now it is my 2 minutes, and that's a joke, 2 minutes. Everybody is talking about Andrea's strength. She had a lot of weaknesses. One of the weaknesses was admitted me into the circle of Donna and Karen. So I was one of the three, and we used to get together and say, we have got to do something to get Andrea to shape up. So we will write all of these essays and we will send it over the email to each other and we'll say, this is all ridiculous, let's get together, we'll go there. And she knows this is an intervention program. So what will happen is that we get together and we start talking. We all love each other. So basically it became a party. That's what happened every time. But another part of Andrea that is well known, not well known, is she's quite surreptitious, cunning. So she will say, hi Alex, yeah, what are you doing on Tuesday? Well, I don't know, I don't have anything. So she will say, I'm going for a meeting with NACHA, and so it is about a new template for bylaws for the co-ops. Would you come with me? So I couldn't say no. I got to drive. So I said, okay, I'll go. 18 months later, a lot of hours later, we are coming to the end of it, the bylaws. And she has been gone for a long time, and I have been with the bylaws for a long time. Now, you think that you will learn from this one. It doesn't happen. She goes, hi Alex, yeah, what are you doing on Tuesday? Well, I say, well, I don't have anything planned. You know what, I got a problem, I'm double booked. And could you go for the co-ops on lease land meeting? So I'm still on that meeting, and somehow they think that I'm the representative of Sundance in that meeting. So Andrea has done, I mean, she was also very good. I hated camping in rain. So it is raining cats and dogs, and she'll say, hi Alex, are you coming? And I said, no. I mean, it's raining, I hate camping in the rain. So she will say, no, the rain is going to stop. So we are canoeing in the middle of Red Deer River, it's raining, and I'm wondering, how the hell did I get into this? So she had that power of persuading people to do stuff, it's incredible. And he was also a very strong person. Brian and I were spending our last night with her, and all night, and we were talking, and she will wake up, she will be confused, and we'll say, Andrea, yeah, you're with your two most favorite men. So she says, smile, and say, after a while she's sort of uncomfortable, and say, are you in pain? Yes. Uncomfortable, yes. Do you know where you are? No. So we will tell her we are at the end of life. That's where you are. She will come down. She will go to sleep. An hour later, she will wake up. End of the conversation, we will say the same thing. We are facing the end of life. She will come down, go to sleep. A very, very strong person. Extremely strong person. No fear of whatsoever. I don't know what else to say. She knows all my relatives in India. She has met all the relatives. And Scott and my nieces were running around, and they wanted to know who Scott was, because there were a lot of boys in their family, and the older people wanted to know who she was. So she became part of my family, and my family asked about her, and she asked about my family. She has met all my sisters, my relatives, and Donna was co-opted into wearing salwar kameez. And we used to have to go to Ragamala Society, which is Indian classical music, and she was really a fan of it. And if I didn't go, she would say, why aren't you going? No, she is going. She will pick me up to go to the Indian classical music. And in the last concert that she had, the first concert that we had, after the concert, one of the songs was dedicated to her in the classical society. And this is a whole bunch of nuts, who likes Indian classical music. So she was also a fun person. So I remember, the rain, we are going camping and, going up the side of the embankment to camp on top, because when it is raining, Red Deer River gets flooded and everything will be washed out. We have got to lug everything up. And we were on top of the bank and we were climbing up a place where the cattle come down, the trail. The first person that went up slipped down and slided all the way down in the mud. The next person looked at it and said, "Oh, it's a slide." So we had a rope rigged up to the top of the bank and we were sliding down the mud. And our kids were looking at grown men, people, like what they're crazy. And after that, there is Denise, there is Sally, there is Andrea. They had a fashion show. We had a tarp, and under the tarp, the muddy shirts and sweaters and scarves and hats, and big fashion show. We had a lot of fun, lots and lots of fun. And we'll miss her, but she will be in our heart, and we'll always remember her, and we will have her alive in our memories until we die. Denise.
Thank you. I'm just going to echo, I think, some of the comments others have made, but every morning I drink coffee in my favorite mug, and it has an image of a Japanese cat. And of course, it was a present from Andrea that she picked up on a trip to New York. I think she actually was with Sharon. And she said she bought it because it reminded her of me. But of course, by gifting me that mug, Andrea made sure that I was reminded of her every day, as if I needed to be. But indeed, I am reminded of her every day, from the time she gifted it to me until now, of course. And in fact, it's really hard for us, for Michelle and I, to actually accept that she's gone. Andrea's gifts to me, and I suspect to many of you, were myriad. She was at the center of so many things of my life, from food co-ops and housing co-ops, from our magical canoe trips, some of which Alex just described, but which always featured during Canada Day a sing-along of vampire beavers, for those of you who don't know it, we can tell you later. Just many of the kind of daring feminist hijinks that we got along with, and again, you could ask Karen Rosewell about some of that. And of course, her fabulous dinners, and her spanakopita are unparalleled. They remain unrivaled, I think, to this day. But she was not just the glue that held many of the social networks together, as all people have already commented. She worked tirelessly to ensure that these relationships were maintained. She was our rock, one who had an ear always for us to listen, a shoulder to lean on, and we always knew she had our backs. She was generous beyond words, wise beyond belief, steadfast, and as others have mentioned, really, really funny. Who could forget her skits? Some of us, some who were like subjects of her skits too, can never forget them. And we can't forget her laugh. That was just, it still comes to me in the middle of the day hearing her laugh. But she was also, as many have mentioned, so frightfully intelligent. What some people don't know is I met Andrea and I was so intimidated by her, I actually didn't approach her for a couple of years. When I learned later that she had come to Canada to do her PhD in immunology with the same professor whose introductory course I really narrowly passed, it made me even more in awe of her. But I shouldn't have been intimidated. Andrea made a place in her heart and in her lives for so many of us. Andrea Rogers was my friend, my fellow bow babe, and my family, and I love her, and I know we all love her. Thanks.
We are going to keep the floor open for anybody who would like to say something. Now, Angela said that she would like to say something, so we'll start with Angela.
Andy and I met at the Bulgogi House in 1982, introduced by John McGordy, who said, "Hey, we're going to dinner at the Bulgogi House. Why don't you come along?" And we remained friends for the rest of her life, for 35 years. And as I listen to many of you speaking, I wonder why, how I was so blessed, how I got so lucky. But she had a gift for friendship. She had a huge gift for friendship. And I never imagined when we met at that small Korean restaurant that she would become such a large part of my life. And that, and over the years, as I moved from northern Alberta to Edmonton, to the Yukon, to Vancouver, we remained friends. She was my Edmonton anchor. She was more than my Edmonton anchor. I was thinking someone said she was their rock, and that is who Andrea was. She had our backs. She always had our backs. And the last 4 years have been very difficult ones for me. I lost my marriage, I lost both of my parents, I lost Andy and another very dear friend, all within the space of about 4 years. And during those years, I could always count on Andy to lend an ear, as somebody, I believe Denise just said, and more often than not, make me laugh. I would pick up the phone in the middle of some kind of grief or divorce, frustration, or something. And before I got off the phone, I'd be laughing. And Andy would say, "You sound really good, Ange." And it was true. After talking with Andy, I always felt better. That was one of her greatest gifts. Am I speaking into this? Yeah. I always felt stronger and tougher, and you've got this after I talked to her. And I think that was one of her greatest gifts. Life was just more doable when Andy was around. It was more fun, and there was more joy. And I too hear her voice often and hear her laughter. And that was one of the greatest parts of my life. Dinner parties at Andrea's and laughing. And I only lived in Edmonton 2 years, 2.5 years altogether. But over the years, I spent many parts of summers here. She visited Scott and on the island, and me in Vancouver, and Colette in Vancouver. We visited back and forth for many, many years, sent mail, talked on the phone. She wasn't very good with email, as many of you may know. She was too busy until she got email. As something changed, I guess she got a laptop and she could be at her desk. And we exchanged books. She called them her airplane books. And if she had picked up a book she thought I might like on a trip, she would send it to me and want to know, well, what did I think? And we also exchanged postcards for years. If one of us went somewhere, we were supposed to send each other postcards, and we did. And I miss that terribly. It was a small thing, but it was a big thing. And that's how, I guess, friendships and lives and love are built, from small things. And she knew that. And I will always miss her. We will all miss her. And yes, she'll be alive in our hearts, but I sure as hell wish she was alive right here, right now. Because I'm sure, as someone said, she was the last person we could have ever imagined would be the first to go in a circle of friends. And I remember saying, I believe, to Beth, that I just wish more than anything I could say hello to Andy and say, "What the hell, Andy? How could you do this? This is so not like you. This is just not you." But yes, I miss her very deeply. I was blessed to have her in my life, to have her as a friend, and through tough times and good times. And we laughed a lot and enjoyed, movies and dinners and many, many things. And what else can we say? She will be missed so much.
If there's anybody else who would like to talk, we don't really need a mic. And also, this is portable. We can hand the mic over to you wherever you are sitting. All I'm looking for is a hand. And Michael, pull it up. Or...
Hi, my name is Sally Eisenman. Louder?
No, up.
Oh,
You can see you.
okay. My name is Sally Eisenman, and I moved into Sundance in January of 1983. And I moved next door to Andrea, Brian, and Scott. And just want to focus my comments on what a huge loss Andrea's death is to the co-op sector. Even this morning I was talking with a friend who seems to be interested in moving into co-op housing, and he was asking me these questions about, you know, if when I move out, will I get any money for, you know, he saw the walkway, that's at my house, blah, blah, blah. And I was like explaining to him that it's a non-equity co-op, and there's so many people who don't know about the third sector, and was such a brilliant person in communicating the values of co-op housing, and such a strong pillar, not only in Edmonton, but in Alberta and Western Canada, and a respected person in Canada on co-op housing. And Sundance wouldn't be here. She's a founding member of Sundance, and Sundance wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. And it's just a huge loss to our social memory, social history of in Sundance and Riverdale, and just want to acknowledge her brilliance in that area. Thank you.
And a show of hands. The normal. We are going in the normal style. Being the MC, I didn't know what was going to happen next, and she was going to tell me. So we are going to have a slideshow.
Yeah. Yeah, just real quick. Yeah. When we went out to the garden yesterday, Charlie and Marlene were there, and Charlie often came out to the garden, as I understand, with his camera, and did so yesterday, and took some pictures of our time together picking corn, and has some words to share about his friendship with Andrea, and uses these pictures as a platform. So yes, so he stayed up late last night and like put together something, and was going to speak to it. So we just got Brian here doing our technical expertise. So hang on.
Charlie, I'll switch him for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Andrea and I knew each other when she came to grad school, but tales from grad school are best left in grad school. So I won't bore you with that, except to say that Andrea and her lady cohorts were pretty scary. So for those of you who weren't in the garden, and we were pleased to help with the garden, there's a few slides. These are all from yesterday, so they're not really very well done, cropped, just drafts, slides. And they're all from yesterday, with the exception of a few from going back to 2014, when Andrea's in the garden. So we want to get to the next one. So there's Andrea in different days, and you'll notice how neat the garden was. Things changed. Always in a great mood. Next. And this was probably last year, actually. Next one. So we went out to pick corn, And several of us had grown corn out there, including my partner Marlene, who's in these pictures. And there's the corn, the before of the corn patch. Next. There's shucking or picking corn. And next one. There's the crew. Next. I don't want to. I'll go through really quickly.
Okay.
And Scott. Next. And people were having fun. We wanted, as I say, we went out to pick corn and to pick flowers. The flowers among you today have come from our mutual garden. Next. There they are. Isn't that great? Next. There's Marlene picking some. I hope you recognize everyone. Well, next. There was a surprise, however. There was something else to be done, and we didn't realize that Andrea was with us until Scott surfaced the box with the ashes. And she dug a hole, and we were going to leave some of Andrea at the garden. We were a little taken aback. Next. These are in order, so people weren't exactly sure what expressions to affect, or some of us, because Scott was so happy to be leaving some of Andrea there. As you can see, sometimes pensive, next. Sometimes smiling. These are seconds apart. And maybe she's not sure. Next. There's some sadness here. Some sadness and some joy. There's the hole, the ashes at the bottom, and people made offerings of squash blossoms and beans and corn tassels. Next. And you saw the smile on Scott's face. This was, again, from that previous set of 2014. It's, I guess, Andrea's farewell back to the garden, and I couldn't help but put this in there. She liked this photo. And here's what's left of the garden. There's no corn anymore. Next. And at this point, I walked in the woods and realized that not only Andrea, but the garden and all of us will return to this. So, Requiem Scott and Bachem, Andrea. Thank you. Next, last one. It seemed to be saying goodbye. Thanks very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Well, Scott, I should say that we are probably 10 minutes late, but we pulled it in. Now comes the corn party. There's a little bit of rearrangement that we have got to do. Everybody who has got a table, if they stand up and turn around, you will be at the table. And we would like to introduce a few tables here so that everybody can have a table.